The day my stepmom told me my own father never wanted me, something inside me broke. But what if I told you that wasn't even the worst part? Have you ever had someone rewrite your entire life with just a few words? Because that's exactly what happened to me. My name is Lena Carter. I'm 24, and 3 months ago, I stood in the living room of the house I grew up in, holding a letter that would change how I saw myself forever. It was quiet that afternoon, too quiet, the kind of silence that feels intentional. My stepmother, Diane Carter, stood across from me, arms folded, watching me like she already knew how this would end. Then she said it, not gently, not with hesitation, cold, direct. You should read it. Your father wrote it before he died. He never wanted you anyway. Just like that. No build-up, no warning. Tell me, what would you do in that moment? Because I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just froze. In my hands was a slightly worn envelope, my name written on the front in handwriting I thought I recognized. My dad, Richard Carter, had passed away just a few weeks earlier, and grief does something strange to you. It makes you accept things you would normally question. So I opened it, and I read, line by line, my chest tightening with every word. It talked about regret, about distance, about how he was never ready to be a father. And then the line that stayed with me. Some things in life happen before we're ready, and you were one of them. I remember reading that part twice, maybe 3 times, because it didn't sound like him. But then again, what did I really know? My dad wasn't the emotional type. He wasn't the kind to say, "I love you," out loud. So maybe this was the truth he never said while he was alive. And Diane? She didn't comfort me. She didn't explain anything. She just stood there, watching, almost like she was waiting for it to sink in. And it did. That night, I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, and tucked it away in a drawer. I told myself I'd forget it, move on, pretend it didn't matter. But here's the thing. You can't unknow something like that. It changes how you remember everything, every moment, every silence, every look. And just when I thought I had accepted it, when I finally stopped asking questions, 3 months later, I got a phone call, a lawyer, and the first thing he said was, "Lena, we need to talk about your father's will and a letter you've already read." Wait, how did he know about the letter? If that letter was real, why would a lawyer want to read it again? That question sat in my mind the entire drive to the office. I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to ignore the call, pretend none of this was happening. Because if there's one thing I had learned over the past few months, it's that some truths don't heal you, they break you again. But something felt off, and I couldn't ignore it. The office was quiet, professional, too clean, the kind of place where everything feels controlled, measured. That's where I met Daniel Reeves, my father's estate lawyer. Mid-40s, calm, observant, the type of man who chooses his words carefully. And then there was Diane. She was already there, sitting across from the desk like she belonged, like nothing had changed. No tension, no emotion, just that same composed expression I'd seen the day she handed me the letter. That alone made my stomach tighten, because if this meeting was about something serious, why did she look so comfortable? "Lena, thank you for coming," Daniel said, gesturing for me to sit. I nodded, barely speaking. My eyes kept drifting to Diane. She didn't look at me. Not once. That was new. Daniel shuffled a few documents, then looked up. "There are a few things we need to go over regarding your father's estate, but first I need to confirm something." He paused. just long enough to make the room feel heavier. You received and read your father's personal letter, correct? There it was. My chest tightened again. I nodded slowly. Yes. Diane shifted slightly in her seat. Small movement, but I noticed. Daniel held my gaze for a second longer than expected, almost like he was studying my reaction. Then he said something that didn't sit right. At the time you read it, did anything about it seem unusual to you? Unusual? The question caught me off guard. I hesitated, because the truth was, yes, something did feel off. The wording, the tone, it didn't fully match the man I remembered. But grief has a way of silencing doubt, doesn't it? So I shook my head. No, not really. And the moment I said it, I regretted it, because Daniel leaned back slightly and exhaled like he had just confirmed something. He reached into a folder and pulled out a sealed document, placed it gently on the desk between us. And then he said, "Then, for legal accuracy, I'm required to read that letter out loud exactly as it was originally documented." Originally documented? My eyes flicked to Diane. For the first time since I walked in, she looked at me. And there was something different in her expression now. Not calm, not confident, something else. Something I hadn't seen before. And suddenly, my heart started racing, because one question hit me all at once. What if the letter I read wasn't the real one? That's when it hit me. What if the letter I read wasn't the real one? Have you ever felt your entire reality start to shift before anything is even proven? Because in that moment, sitting in that office, I felt it. Something wasn't right. Daniel carefully opened the document in front of him. Slow, precise, like every movement mattered. The room went quiet. No one spoke. Not me, not Diane. Then he began reading. And within the first few lines, I knew. This wasn't the same letter. My body reacted before my mind could even process it. My fingers tightened against the arm of the chair. My breathing slowed, like I was trying to hear every single word more clearly. Because the tone, it was completely different. Warm. Regretful, but in a way that felt human. Honest. My dearest Lena. I froze. My dad never called me that in the letter I read. Never. Daniel continued. He read about missed moments, about wishing he had said more while he had the chance, about struggling to express emotions but feeling them deeply regardless. And then, the line that shattered everything I thought I knew. You were never a mistake. You were the one thing I got right. My heart dropped. No, that's not what it said. That's not what I read. I leaned forward, my voice barely steady. Stop? That's not... I swallowed. That's not what it said. Silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. Daniel looked up at me calmly. I assure you, Lena, this is the original document, filed and notarized before your father's passing. Original. The word echoed in my head. Slowly, almost mechanically, I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope Diane had given me. My hands were shaking now. I slid the letter out and placed it on the table. Then explain this, I said quietly. Daniel didn't rush. He took both documents, placed them side by side, and began scanning them line by line. And the more he compared, the heavier the air became. Because the differences? They weren't small. Entire sentences had been altered, words removed, phrases rewritten, meaning completely twisted. What was once love had been turned into rejection. What was once regret had been turned into indifference. I couldn't breathe. I turned my head slowly toward Diane. She wasn't looking at me anymore. Her eyes were fixed on the table, avoiding everything. Avoiding the truth. Daniel finally spoke. Carefully. Measured. This version, he tapped lightly on the letter I brought, has been modified. Such a calm word for something that felt like betrayal. I swallowed hard, my voice barely above a whisper. Modified? By who? And for the first time since this started, Diane didn't have an answer. Because think about it. If she could lie about something this big, what else had she changed? What else had I believed that wasn't real? The room felt smaller now, tighter, like the walls were slowly closing in. Daniel adjusted his glasses and spoke carefully, choosing every word like it mattered in court. The original document was secured and filed before your father's passing, he explained. Access to it was extremely limited. I didn't even need to ask. I already knew where this was going. Still, I turned to him. Who had access? He hesitated for half a second, then answered. Your father, myself, and his legal spouse at the time. Legal spouse. Diane. The word hung in the air like a verdict, and suddenly everything started replaying in my mind, but differently now. The days after my dad died, how Diane insisted on handling everything, how she told me, don't worry about the paperwork, I'll take care of it, how she discouraged me from asking questions. At the time, it felt like help. Now, it felt like control. I turned to her fully. Why? I asked. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Why would you change it? She shook her head almost immediately, too quickly. I didn't change anything, she said. You must be misunderstanding. No, Daniel's voice cut in, calm but firm. There are clear inconsistencies. Ink variation, structural alterations. This version was not the one filed. Diane's composure cracked, just a little, but I saw it. For the first time, she looked nervous, cornered. I leaned forward. Then explain it, I said quietly, because that letter, I pointed to mine, told me my father never wanted me. My voice broke on the last word, and that's when it happened. Not a dramatic outburst, not yelling, just a shift. Diane exhaled slowly. Her shoulders dropped, and then she said something that made my stomach turn. I didn't think you needed to hear all of it. Silence. What? I adjusted it, she admitted, to make things clearer. Clearer? How? I asked. She hesitated, and in that hesitation, the truth slipped out. You were already distant from him, she said. I didn't want you holding on to false hope. False hope? That my own father loved me? She didn't answer, because she didn't need to. Daniel stepped in again, his tone more serious now. Altering a notarized personal document, especially one tied to an estate, has legal consequences. That word hit differently. Legal. This wasn't just emotional anymore. This was real. Permanent. I sat back slowly, my mind racing. Everything I thought I had accepted over the past 3 months was a lie, a carefully constructed one. And now, sitting in that room, staring at the woman who handed it to me, only one question mattered. I looked at Daniel, then back at Diane, and asked quietly, so what happens now? Finally, the moment everything shifted from doubt, betrayal, and fear to clarity, truth, and resolution. Daniel leaned back, folding his hands calmly. Here's what actually happened. The letter you first received, Diane altered. The original notarized document was filed and secured before your father passed. It was genuine.
Your father loved you, Lena. Every word reflects him. Honest, unfiltered, and heartfelt. The weight of that hit me like a physical force. Months of self-doubt, guilt, and sorrow, all built on a manipulated piece of paper, crashed down. I remembered the man I knew. Small gestures, quiet love, a smile that always warmed me just enough. And now, in black and white, his voice spoke louder than any memory. I was never a mistake. You were the one thing I got right. I closed my eyes and let the relief wash over me. Tears fell. Not dramatic, just steady and real. For the first time since he died, I could breathe. The grief was still there, but now it came with truth, validation, justice. Daniel continued, "Legally, Diane's actions have serious consequences. Altering a notarized document is considered tampering. The court can impose penalties, and her credibility in any dispute over the estate is compromised. The original terms of the will and your father's wishes stand as intended. You inherit as intended without interference." I exhaled slowly, letting it sink in. Months of confusion, pain, and doubt cleared. Diane's control ended. Socially, she lost her authority over family matters. The relatives who had trusted her now understood the manipulation. Personally, I felt stronger, independent, validated, and finally untangled from her web. I reread the original letter, slowly, savoring each word. Not the cold, cruel version she gave me, but my father's real voice, the love, the pride, the regret, and the certainty that I belonged. I knew Diane would face repercussions, legally, socially, and within our family, but I also knew I no longer had to carry her lies. I didn't need her permission, her approval, or her manipulation. I could move forward, grounded in truth, with my father's love intact. I placed the letter somewhere visible, a quiet reminder, not hidden in a drawer this time. This time, the words were mine to keep. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. Because she tried to rewrite how my father felt about me, but the truth doesn't stay buried forever. And this time, I finally heard his words exactly the way he meant them. Complete closure. No loose ends. Truth restored.